Good evening, folks. It's Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Tonight, guest host Ron Matten.
Freddie wins.
Good evening, folks. It's Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Tonight, let's talk politics. I got guest host with me, Ron Matten. That's right. It's not an interview. We're going to be discussing politics, so we welcome your questions, comments, and everything in between. Good evening, Ron. Here I go. Oh, nope, the wrong one. Hey,
Hey, you got all.
there we go.
You've got all the controls on your side. So
Yeah. How you doing, Ron? How's it going
Good,
this evening?
doing well. It's actually been a while since we've spoken.
Yeah. Well, they like to think that we're talking all the time. So, as they would say it. But I wanted you to come on, the show. As I say, I always, when we do talk, I do enjoy your conversations. You have a lot of insightful things to say. I always say you're a smart man. You know what you're talking about when it comes to politics. Some people may disagree with you, and very recently you've become public enemy number 2 or 1. I don't know which one. I may be 1. I don't know if I'm 2.
I'd like to think of myself as public informer number 1, rather than public enemy. Oh, look, I've been around Yonkers politics actually quite a long time, but not very actively since 2016 was when I got a little bit active with Yonkers politics. And after I ran, I got to see I got to see a lot more than maybe than I bargained for. So I was a backup candidate to Lakeisha is what the way I figure it. I think there were those in the Republican Party that wanted me to win, but there were probably also those in the Republican Party that didn't want me to win. So the Republican Party as a whole is split, just like the Democratic Party is split. You've got about 3 wards in the Democratic Party that are independent of the main Democratic Party run by the DPW commissioner.
Right.
I don't know who it's run by. Let's take that back.
Well, really quick, going back to your race in 2021, you did very well. I think you did a lot better than a lot of people thought.
I'm going to say this, that I was unknown. Lakeisha was unknown. To run a citywide race, I think she spent about $77,000 at the end of the day. I spent 16. I think I spent the appropriate amount of money on the race. When you look at these council races, you've got people spending $60,000. I think Tim spent maybe 35, 36. But when you're spending $35,000 to $60,000 to win a council race, for a $50,000 position, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. There's the mailers,
I was going to say, where does that money go to, right? Because that's one thing I heard. You need to have money. You have to have money.
Look, there's signs, there's mailers. I didn't have any paid staff. I think Lakeisha had some paid staff. I know Anthony. I'm working Anthony's campaign now. Anthony has paid staff. Anthony's serious about it. Anthony wants to fix the city. So he's run 2 close races before. The second race wasn't quite as close. It was 300 votes. Tim lost by about the same percentage I lost by against Anthony. I lost to Lakeisha 42 and change to 46 and change, somewhere in that. And 47 and change, and then I think Tim and Anthony's race went a similar way.
Why do you think, really quick, Ron, why do you think that not to say anything negative about you, but why do you think you did so well in against Lakeisha, having spent so much less?
Again, it's voter turnout. Partly, I didn't. If I would have had a better get out the vote team at the end, I didn't know I would get a list. So during early voting, we got these lists of everybody who voted and everybody who didn't vote as Republican and Democrat. What I didn't realize until a few days after early voting had begun, that it had phone numbers in the list. They weren't all good, but it had phone numbers, and you could do a get out the vote. I only had about 2 or 3 people working with me, so there wasn't enough uh, of a phone bank to do that get out the vote. If I could have recruited 10 people who could make 10 calls a day to tell people to go out and vote, that's really all I needed. I mean, it was 1,100 votes was the difference in the race. So the idea is first race, putting together a proper staff. I worked. I was door to door. I worked all summer door to door. I did get some criticism early on. People didn't said that, well, we don't see you. Of course you don't see me. I'm one person. It was mostly my wife and me going door to door. Occasionally Justin helped me. Occasionally John Larkin helped me. A few people had offered, but by the time you get over there, and you have to concentrate. By the way, Bob Stoff also helped me. He's a Democrat. And
Well, but and I'm asking because in a city that's predominantly Democratic, right? I think it's what 3-1, is it? The three
yeah,
Democrats.
it's about 66,000 Democrats and about 22,000 Republicans.
Right, and you did well, considering being a political unknown, and you also didn't have the Spano machine. And let's just be honest, right? Lakeisha Collins Bellamy, the current city council president, had the machine, the Spano machine, and according to Johnny Limo, she spent over 100,000 through the Committee for a Better Yonkers.
Well, I think that 100,000 was meant to take the legs out from under Mike Cater. I don't think they spent all that much on me, but I think that initial spend was on the primary. Look, Nick Spano, who is supposed to be a leading Republican, had a Lakeisha Collins Bellamy sign on his lawn for at least 6 hours. It went away the next day, but for at least 6 hours, he had a Lakeisha Collins Bellamy sign on his lawn. He's got a Mike Breen sign on his lawn now, so you know who not to vote for when you go to Nick Spano's lawn.
Well, he was also at her event the night of the election, the night she won, and so he was definitely supporting Lakeisha Collins Bellamy there. And so I want to get into now moving, to the present with Nick Spano. I hear that he's having an event tonight, a bunch of cars at his house. People always, I get information, and but we know that Nick Spano is involved. I mean, that's one of the things that people talk about in Yonkers, often political insiders. We know that there are certain individuals that are active in politics that maybe shouldn't be active in politics. And that's now starting to kind of blow up a little bit.
Look, I'm, we can go, I guess, cut right to the chase with the David McKay Wilson article that started this.
Right.
He came
was
out.
It basement politics that started it? I thought it was basement.
Well, I mean,
I'm joking.
Let's say the traditional media.
Right.
He came out with 14 family members. I think they're quite a bit more. And look, if a lot of these family members were on, prior to Mike Spano taking office, Steve Wilgermine or Stefan Wilgermine, whatever his name is, for instance, he was in during the Amicone administration. But during the Amicone administration, he was making $82,000 a year.
Right.
He's making over $200,000 a year. I don't know what the base pay is. So those are, Lenny Spano, I believe Nick's son, was in during the Amicone administration, but I don't know what promotions happen after that. So it is problematic, or at least on first blush, it looks problematic, and it should be investigated. Look, I called for the investigation of Mike Cater last year, 2 years ago. Right. And I called for that investigation because I wanted him to be cleared because I thought in a three-way race I had a better shot. But I think this should be investigated before the primary. I don't think you can because it's just too entrenched. It's not just Yonkers, it's the YIDA, it's Yonkers Public Schools, it's HMAC. There's community block grants that are attached to organizations that are given out. Yonkers has a $1.3 billion budget, I believe. I could be off. I don't know. I didn't look at the newest budget documents.
Yeah.
But there's also 1.25 million in federal money that comes down as block grants that's given out to a lot of different organizations. But that is also a means by which people can buy votes or
Right.
buy loyalty.
Right.
I saw there was a $50,000 block grant proposed for Brother to Brother, and that happens to be. I know they do some good work with the boxing thing, but that's
Yes.
also tied to some Yonkers insiders as well. Um, you look at Castle Royal. Castle Royal was purchased with YID, well, or was developed with YIDA money. Um, you know,
Yeah, and that's and when the article came out, and and they talking about 14, which I'm hearing actually somewhere around 31 family members.
I heard 29, but two are unconfirmed at this point.
And the mayor's response obviously was, "I have a large family, of course." And as you mentioned, Steve Squig, as he goes by, got the job back in the Amacon days. But I just want to touch on and highlight what you said specifically when you look at the salaries and the increases that these individuals have since received since Mike Spano has been in office. I've gotten some information from a political insider who said that these salaries were not as high prior to Mike Spano.
I've worked for municipalities before. Um, I worked for the town of Greenwich, and a lot of folks in Greenwich are related. Uh, but nowhere did I see that it was this pervasive. Like the guy who worked for me, he was a manager. His son wound up getting a job for the tree department. Not related, tree department facilities in the schools. Uh, but there's still a line where you manage somebody, or down the line. So if you're managing the mayor's nephew, or you're managing the mayor's niece or cousin, uh, I guess you want to be careful. And so
Right.
there were, you know,
Right. What impact does that have to that person being able to manage, the individual? And so that's what he says. He says, "Well, I'm not their boss. I'm not. They have
yeah, but
supervisors that
yeah.
respond that they report to." And I chuckled at that too. I said, "Well, those supervisors, they're not gonna, hold them accountable as they would everyone else because of the
Oh,
relationship."
sure. You've got to worry. You've got to worry about somebody coming down, or something happening with your own job. It's different when you're in the union and you're a civil service employee in the union, but when you're a manager, you're an at-will employee.
Right.
Uh,
I want to ask you, Ron, how does and I spoke about this in terms of the economic impact that it has to the overall city. What was your take? I always say it's a negative impact, right? When you have so many people getting these outrageous salaries because of a nepotism and patronage, and that's tax money, right? And a lot of times people leave the city of Yonkers, so that has an economic impact on the city, I would imagine. What
well,
would you
sure.
say?
I mean, look, I don't know. I don't know what the base salary is, but I'm certainly the base salary is not $200,000. When you have one, I get if there's a reason why you want to work some overtime, why you want overtime, because you're not paying benefits. Benefits are anywhere from 30 to 45%, depending upon the union and the requirements. Um, but at what point do you decide, well, we need a few more bodies here? I always don't like working people longer than 10% over their stated hours, because you're fine on the 41st hour of your week, but on the 60th hour of your week you're fatigued.
Right.
And if you're working, let's say you're working wastewater, you're working for the water department or something, you're working around pumps, you have impellers, you have moving equipment, and you have the possibility of somebody getting hurt because they're not as alert as they were at the end of the week when they started the week. So those are the things that, there's also a human toll on somebody getting that much overtime, even on the police and fire. I mean, you see some of the police, and I don't want to take any money out of anybody's
Right.
pocket,
Right.
but there's also a safety impact on that as well. It's how many hours can you do in a week, still be effective, and make sure that nobody's getting hurt, particularly for a cop. I mean, I could not imagine having to work dealing with people all day, and probably dealing with people that are very different from yourself in terms of the way that um, they treat others around them. And that's got to grate on your nerves after a while. And again, the first hour versus the 60th hour of dealing with, of really trying to be patient with somebody, whether because of mental illness or just any other reason,
Right.
they're not behaving properly. It's a lot to put on an employee, and it also could impact badly for the community.
Absolutely, and I spoke about that also. One of the things that I have received information about was individuals receiving patronage jobs because of work that they did on campaigns, contributions, but they weren't they had health issues, right? And so they were able to have their health exam, I guess required health exam for the position, forged, and they were, passed, and they got the position. And then they're driving city vehicles like garbage trucks. So what if they have some medical condition emergency as they're driving a city vehicle
Yeah,
like a garbage
so
truck?
I'm not sure of all. I know for a CDL license, there's a much more stringent than you and I. We go get our passenger car license. So I don't know, how they, fake the requirements through what doctors or whatever. I do recall, um, I was 19 years old and I took the New York City police exam. I'm colorblind, so I failed the color blindness test. My father happened to know Mario Biaggi. Got a letter from Mario Biaggi that basically said he's a good character. I know him. He's not colorblind. And then he told me to go get a letter from an eye doctor that said I wasn't colorblind. The eye doctor held up a yellow pen, said, "What color is this?" I said, "It's yellow." "Okay, you pass." Signed off. And I went back down to it wasn't One Police Plaza. I think it was the Police Academy at 23rd Street, and took the exam. And the guy showed me the answers. He said, "I'm going to grade your answers against these questions," because he saw the letter from Mario Biaggi. Again, I'm a 19-year-old kid. I look at it real quick. I looked at the wrong set of answers, and I'm going through them. Yeah, I see these numbers. I mustn't be colorblind. I got them all wrong.
So you got a job through hookup too, also, right?
Well, that wasn't a job because I wound up failing. I wound up failing the test.
And they couldn't help you with that. I mean, they can,
I guess you can only go so far publicly without getting yourself, screwed as
right.
Be.
Well,
But yeah, so I mean, and I'm talking. This was 1979, 78, 79.
let's talk about the back to the investigation, in the story by David McKay and the call for an investigation by Indivisible 16 and I think the Working Families Party also.
All right, so some Yonkers group wrote a letter to Mimi Roca. I think Mimi Roca looked at it, and you'll kind of you and I are both experiencing this as well. She probably looked at it. She says, "I don't want to get in the middle of this. Like all the judges who are dealing with your defamation suit and all the judges who are dealing with my defamation suit, they just keep recusing themselves because everybody is connected somewhere."
Right.
So she looks at this and she figures, I'm running for office. I don't need to make any enemies. I'm going to kick this back to the Yonkers Inspector General. I'm going to kick it to DiNapoli, who's the controller, and I'm going to kick it to the Ethics Board. I don't know if they've reconstituted the Ethics Board. If they have, they probably had to get a priest or an exorcist because last I looked, 2 members of the Ethics Board were deceased. One member was listed twice. So out of 7 members, I think they only have 4. I believe they're all over 60. Some are over 70. So you need 4 for a quorum. So I don't know how often the ethics board meets, but they're not gonna do anything with this. And I wouldn't expect Liam would either.
Right.
Liam's comment was it's political silly season.
Right, and that's obviously a contradiction to how he felt in 2021, right, when he investigated Mike Cater.
It's a different case, and I'll say I'll explain why. Here he's being asked to investigate by Mimi Roca. He doesn't report to Mimi Roca. In 2021, he was being asked to
Right.
investigate by the council. He does report to the council. He does report to the mayor. So if the council asks, even if the council asks him to investigate the mayor, the council can get together and say, "Hey, Liam, investigate the mayor," and he would have no choice but to do that.
Well, how many would you need? I know Anthony Moranti's put out a statement saying that there needs to be an investigation. Obviously, Corazon Pineda Isaac, that's 2 council
Right.
members right there.
You need 4, and unfortunately, there's the 4 members of the council that are controlled by the mayor's office. You have Rubo, you have Bellamy, you have Diaz, and Breen. So those are the mayor's 4.
And Shanae.
Well, yeah, Shanae's hard to call. I mean, I think sometimes she goes out on her own. I'm reading John's.
Yeah, this board is in a coma.
So sometimes she goes out on her own, and sometimes she doesn't. So I'm kind of reserving judgment, if you will.
Well, Shanae Williams got her position, first as an appointment by the mayor,
Yeah.
and then she obviously had to run again. But she's been with the mayor since she was in college as an assistant.
I know she was the mayor's scheduler.
Yeah.
I had interviewed for the school board back in 2016, maybe 2015. I didn't get it, by the way. Kevin Kikase got it. But
Johnny says, no, not correct, Ron. Council did not follow procedure on investigation. What did John mean by that?
Yeah, I don't know. I know they're supposed to have a vote, and I felt the council, and again, I want to be a little careful because I am being sued, but I felt the council had the authority to investigate themselves. They had the authority to request the information themselves. So my calls didn't say that they should go to the inspector general. My call said that they should hold the investigation themselves. I don't know if that would have been any less problematic or any quicker, because you wouldn't have had the conflict of 2 former rivals, being Liam had
Right.
against Mike.
Right.
So if John would like to come back and explain how they didn't follow procedure, I don't know. And again, I don't want, John, I guess, also has to be careful not to give anything up either, because Mike, his brother, is party in the lawsuit.
They meet 4 times a year, and they have 30 days per the charter to fill vacancies. The 4 meetings last year are null and void since they violated the
This
charter.
is regarding, I guess.
Yeah, it's regarding the ethics board.
Yeah, there's no real ethics board.
Yeah, I think the last decision they made was on John Rubo on whether or not he can chair the real estate committee, because AMS was his landlord, and they said there was no problem with that. Ethics board. So that was.
I'm curious who wrote the decision for them, or was there any meeting notes, or who was?
Did the individuals die after that decision?
Judge Noka, I think, has been deceased since 2018, and the other woman, she just died this January.
And so how quickly are they supposed to fill these, and replace these individuals so they can have an active ethics board that will investigate when called upon?
I would think you would want to replace within 2 or 3 meetings.
Right.
2 or 3 months at the most.
Exactly. They had no right making that decision on Rubo. I have the meeting, and they eradicated most of them. Yeah. So, Mimi Roca, is she doing the right thing? Did she do the right thing by kicking it back to Liam, or is that her just trying to avoid it and stay out of it?
I think, well, she didn't just kick it back. She also kicked it to
the comptroller.
Napoli. Yeah.
Right.
So, I'm going to say this. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and it might get it might get a particular reaction, but I really think this ought to be a Department of Justice investigation, not because I'm saying we've got a federal issue here, but the Spanos are very well known in New York State. Come on, Nick Spano ran New York State. He was one of the 3 men in the room at the time they were doing budgets. So I think he still has a fair amount of influence. Mike Spano is very close with Kathy Hochul at this point.
Yeah.
So I think it maybe belongs in federal hands, only that, as I said, I've my lawsuit, I've kind of been through 3 or 4 judges already because they keep recusing themselves. I think you're on at least your second judge.
I don't even know this. I wait for my attorney to just. He says, Freddie, I'm gonna just whenever I need to speak to you about it, I'll call you.
Yeah,
We're working on
I
other
think
things.
you mentioned your judge recused himself.
Yeah. Well, the first one, what's his name? Greenwald or something like that. Hal Greenwald. Yeah, he lives actually on Colonial Parkway. Right.
Oh,
Yeah. So
okay. Then that must be when I say I walk my dog. I'm not too far from Colonial Parkway, so I walk my dog on Colonial Parkway, and I do see a set of judicial plates.
that might
I
be
don't know,
Hal
about
Greenwald.
three houses down, 3 houses down from the corner.
Council did not have the authority to go to IG. They needed to have an executive meeting, which they didn't. They
That's
bypassed
true.
a
Yeah,
review by ethics board.
Yeah, John is correct. They needed to go into executive session first, but they could not have issued that letter requesting Liam to investigate without going into executive session. I believe he's correct on that. Yeah, the letter appeared out of nowhere. Their letter
Right.
appeared out of nowhere.
Should
So
should instead of saying that it was political, silly season accusations and that he was not going to get involved in a political dispute, would the right thing have been to recuse himself? The right thing to do by Liam to recuse himself because of his connection with the Spanos? I mean, I shared a photo when they're all out at a casino, they're drinking, they're having fun. I mean,
yeah, I may have, it again, I'm not an attorney, so I don't have that experience, but I may have said, look, I'm going to refer this outside. I mean, they referred to outside counsel, but who's outside counsel going to be?
right.
Who's hiring and paying the outside counsel? So I'm not sure you still get to those decisions. I'm going to lay this with Mimi Roca, who kicked it back. Maybe Mimi should have kicked it elsewhere. She could have kicked it to the New York IG. They're involved in investigating governments and public agencies.
What about that? What do you think of Mimi Roca? What do you think about her?
I don't know. I don't know enough about her. Way back when she was elected, we were actually hoping for Dan Shore as a Republican candidate. I don't think Dan actually made the cutoff at the convention. I think it was somebody else whose name escapes me at this point. For my taste, she's been a little liberal, and I'm not sure that she's been liberal in the good sense of the word being liberal. I think it's been a little bit of pandering,
right,
if you will. So there are some people, and your political views are your political views, and there are some people who are truly believe in their principles, and then there are others who just pay mouth service because they think this is what people want to hear. I think Mimi falls into that second category.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of faith in Mimi Roca just from information that I have, just things that I've seen when she was running for office initially. She was very close to the individuals here in Yonkers, even with some of the developer mess. So I don't know. I don't have faith. My faith is in the people coming out. But how do you see this playing out? This whole nepotism.
I think it's going to get swept under. I don't think it's going to go. Unless it goes to like the DOJ, I don't think it's going to go very far. It's more than just the nepotism piece because you got to look at the political appointments. So let's take a look, and I'm actually going to say Michael Sabatino was a good appointment. I think Michael Sabatino does his job. I don't know if he got a job for his vote. I wasn't there to witness that. I didn't hear anything concrete about that, but he finished out his term. He didn't. I'll give him credit. He didn't look to run for the third term, and then he went and got a job in constituent services. And at least many of the people I speak to says he works. So I don't take away from anybody who got a political appointment who works. I saw him today at the Enrico Fermi dinner this morning. I see him at I go to many fewer events than I've gone to before, but I see him at many of these events.
Does it have
But
anything?
there are others. There are others that get appointments, and they get appointments because of their vote, or they get some kind of key position that allows them. It's you see the same people serving on
Yeah,
boards. And
right.
somebody will serve on four or five, three. Let's call it three or four. I don't think they've got their fifth yet. But people will serve on three or four boards, and I'll tell you, I was on the Yonkers School Construction Board. Um, it's
Which you were recently removed from by
I was
Mr.
recently
Breen.
removed, and I don't believe he had the authority to remove it because there's no removal provision within the statute. But I'm not going to make a big thing about it because
Right,
I've got a day a week back in my life. I mean, a day a month back in my life. I mean, it's a volunteer job.
right.
And
And just really quick for people who may not know, you had upset Breen with your,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
I had my fire breen, or no, I'm sorry, retire breen. I was not
retire
even
Breen sign on your pickup, which you placed in front of an event, a few events actually, but the event on Scarsdale Road, which Nick Spano attended, and he actually, waved and smiled.
He
But
called me out the next day. He said,
yes,
you did a bad thing yesterday.
yes, at the
Look,
state of the city's whatever address.
I'm making a point. Mike Breen votes, and Mike Breen serves Mike Breen, not us.
Right,
Um, Mike. Everyone's seen the video. Everyone should have term limits. He said Congress should have term limits. The president has term limits. We all should be term limited. And then he made his vote, and he said the exact opposite thing when he said his vote. Congress doesn't have term limits. So I think that video was intentionally done, and I think that video was intentionally done to extort the Spanos for a
right,
job.
right.
He didn't get the job because he's really, they know Mike Breen is the laziest councilman in Yonkers. And, I think even though they may give a patronage job to somebody, they still expect him to work. Look, Michael Sabatino has a job, and Michael Sabatino works hard. I think they felt if they gave Mike Breen a job, if the elevator breaks down, he's not coming to work.
Right. Well,
So,
that's what a lot of people are saying. They're saying that he's going to get a patronage job for his vote. He was also involved in the third term. Then he was involved in the no,
right.
actually, it was
So
Akeisha.
it's alleged that Mike's vote, he got Hezzy had an article up regarding Mike's wife. He got that article taken down, which Hezzy did take it down. I believe, excuse me, after the vote passed, Hezzy put it up 3 days later. I believe he also got a job. He got a promotion for his son-in-law.
His
And
kids got promotions, right?
yeah, I don't know if his kids got promotion. I did hear that his son-in-law Neville, and again, this is alleged. It's been told to me by a third party. It has not been verified, but it was that his. I think Anthony DiMaggio could better answer this, but I believe Neville was put into a position that requires being a lieutenant, and he's not, but he gets the lieutenant play. I think that's for one of your sessions with Anthony DiMaggio. I think that's an Anthony DiMaggio question because he knows much better how the Yonkers PD works. And again, it's alleged. This is alleged from people within the Republican Party.
Well,
So
and I tell people this, a lot of the information, most of all of it, probably almost, that I put out there is from people that are inside, employees from different departments that are alleging this stuff. I'm not just sitting here making it up, and so this is how a lot of people feel. I want to read Carolyn's, in regards to the civil service, what about the fact that Steve Levy, who's the deputy mayor, wife works on the Civil Service Commission? She is a very educated woman, so why is she on that board that usually goes to seniors needing insurance?
I'm not understanding the question.
What about? What about the? I guess she's
I
on
guess
the
she's
Civil
on the
Service
Civil Service
Commission,
Commission and on another board.
right?
I didn't quite understand, but yeah, there's a lot of people recycled onto more than one board. And again, when I was on the Yonkers School Construction Board, I didn't always agree with the mayor on this, and neither did many of the other people in the room. And there were occasions where the mayor maybe wanted to go through with something, and we felt no, we needed to make another decision. And I will say, it was a real vote, and the decision went, the majority rules. So there were some good people. There were some good people on the board. Not everybody, even though
Right.
I think the mayor got 3 appointments. Um,
I'll let you finish. I'm just putting that up. Go ahead.
the mayor got. There was a number of different appointments. But I think it was overall a pretty good board. And recently they got in Apicella, who was he's a developer, so he actually brought some good info to that board as well. So I think it was a well balanced board.
So, and you don't care, right? That you were done off the board, right?
No,
But
it's fine. Look, I'm on the Yonkers. I'm on the Yonkers YMCA board. That's volunteer.
Right.
This is just trying to do something good.
right, exactly.
So look, I think it's great we built a new school. Personally, I felt the school was too large. It's there's no setbacks in the building. I think it's a 600 student school. That's just too large.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I didn't like where they placed that school. There was so many other. Obviously, they all went to developers for the most part, the best pieces of land. But
We purchased a property for $4 million. It was a school there. It's just, when you have a school, particularly an urban school, you want some milling around area. Sometimes parents work, they drop their kids off. It's not like the school may not quite be open yet, so they have to have a nice, safe
Right.
place to wait. It's not like back in the day. I would walk to school.
Yeah, me too.
Now parents drop their kids off on the way. Even when I was in Greenwich, some of our schools, 7:30 in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, school starts at 8. They're dropping their kids off at 7 because they've got to get to their job.
Now that school there, it's costing quite a pretty penny. And what's the deal with that? I know that they had gone back to ask for more money. Why is it?
Yeah, we had two raises while I was there. I think
2 raises. Oh wow.
yeah, I think there was 2 increases while I was there. I think we hit the $80 million statute, the $80 million limit on it, and it wasn't that the mayor felt we needed the extra. We were at the $80 million limit. It looks like we were going to be fine with the $80 million limit. And the mayor, to his point, said, look, if we need it, it's better to have it than not have it,
Right.
and have to go back and ask for it at the end. We had some delay claims. Those are all on the legal side, and I'm not going to speak to that. And that's with any building project. That's a large project. You're going to have the trades aren't all lining up because of weather or something else, and then you have claims, and you have to negotiate all that out.
I asked because the school that was built, the high school, the charter school on Warburton, that one I think was about 50 million or a little less than $50 million to build that school. What's the the big difference there?
I don't know. I don't know what I don't know what the square footage is of
Right.
that school. You got to remember we also had to take a building down. So there was asbestos and everything else in that building. So there's a removal cost on that, and that's where you get into that little gray area with delay claims and stuff, because you may have an asbestos report, then you start taking the building down, you realize you have other asbestos.
Right.
You don't know the soil conditions because you had a building standing there that you don't quite know the geotechnical report of the soil conditions. So once the building gets down, then you can know whether you've got sandy soil or clay soil, or how far your piles have to go. All of that other construction information is not as available as it would be if you had no building. So having to demo an existing building adds a tremendous amount of cost.
Yeah, no, that asbestos to take down a building that has a lot of asbestos and stuff, it has to be done a certain way. The asbestos has to be discarded a certain way, so the costs are a lot more money. I've done it for small properties, nothing that big.
And the other thing is, in the older buildings, you have PCB caulking. So the PCB caulking is also handled like asbestos, and in that case, it's usually around windows. So you're cutting out not just the window, but then you're cutting out some brick, and that
Right.
all becomes contaminated refuse, which it needs a chain of custody and everything, just like the asbestos.
So really quick before I let you go, how much of an impact is that one school going to have? I know in the report that I read from the Joint Schools Construction Board, there was a need for 3. And
Yeah, there
we
was
said
a
we
need
can only
for
afford
3.
1.
We could only afford to do 1. I mean, the total plan, we'd have to come up with $660 million
Yeah,
if
yeah,
we wanted to do the total plan, which we can't. But this is one of the schools. I know Gorton High School's in terrible shape. That's one that has to be replaced. Um, the plan, when I knew about it, was building a building on the field next to the high school, and then knocking down the high school and making the field.
kind
So
of
you
like the Yankee Stadium
yeah,
technique.
yeah, kind of the Yankee Stadium
Yeah,
setup. So you wouldn't really have to worry about you know school not being in session. Look, the West, this all goes back to the DSEG case. Is
yeah,
we never built the West Side up because the undesirables lived on the West Side. I lived on the West Side, but the undesirables lived on the West Side. We didn't pay taxes. We just took up services. So the good schools and went on the east side, and that was the whole point of the DSEC case.
right. I actually watched a very interesting documentary last night about the DSEC case. It's called Brick by Brick, a civil rights story. I'm not sure if you heard about that documentary.
No,
It
I'll take a
does.
look for it.
Yeah, you should. It follows up. It's kind of a follow up to the DSEC case, and some of the people that were involved. It came out in 2007, and so it's very interesting. I'm gonna put it on the show, talk about it a little bit, and then maybe we could also talk about that because I don't think they ever really fully,
No, they didn't. They didn't.
abide by the ruling there.
Well, I have a master's in public administration, and my capstone I wrote on the DSEG case. I basically It wasn't solely on the DSEG case. It was really about freedom of local involvement in schools, and whether you wanted to go with community schools or whether you wanted to go with what we have now is we bust the schools. And so the DSEC case was part of it, and we never built the allotted amount of housing that we were supposed to build
Right.
for that case. And
Yeah, I mean they delayed about there was a 4-year delay before they even started to build the
yeah, well,
few that they built.
those are the really bad old days of Yonkers. The hang it was a hot potato. I
Yeah.
see that now. I see that now. People make up an issue. I'm not saying that these weren't made, these weren't concrete or weren't, but people make up an issue to get a visceral response from a group of people to get votes. And that's the bad part of politics, is when you make something up, you try to put a group of people into a particular light, whether bad or good, in order to get this visceral response to get people behind you for votes. And that is the worst part of politics. And it's very much alive here in Yonkers because
Yes.
I see people saying shit that's just not true.
And some of the individuals are still involved, or their relatives are still involved. They haven't gone away. But what you just said there is a good point. Before I let you go, that's one thing that I realized and I saw in the documentary I watched last night. What they did, those who were opposing the housing ordinance, instead of doing one building or 1 or 2 building sites, tall buildings where 100 or 200 people, they spread them out in order to get people in the different communities throughout Yonkers to oppose it. So instead, right, if they just put it in one location, maybe just the people
Right,
of that community. So they wanted a lot of people from different communities to oppose it. So they came up with that plan to put them all over the east
Well,
side.
they got the Catholic Church. They got the Catholic. They were going to give part of the seminary over there by Dunwoody, and whatever they influenced the Catholic Church,
Wow.
the cardinal, to say, all right, no, we can't do that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But the church was willing to say, all right, this is a good thing, and we're going to give you part of the seminary. So they wound up down by Borch. Those Borch or Crotty, down there by Borch or Crotty, right across from the raceway.
For the raceway, right. Yeah.
So, well, they were all supposed to go on the east side somewhere, in order to kind of equalize a little bit. But I think I have to go back and look at my paper. I think we were a number of units short on what we were supposed to supply. Look, it's not as much an issue now. I mean, I can walk through my neighborhood and it is a little more diverse. I didn't live here back then, but it is more diverse. I was speaking with Steve Wagner a couple of months ago. He's in Armavilla. Um, and he was saying his big issue is that, he's in a diverse neighborhood now. So the same things don't apply,
Right.
but their kids get all bussed across the city, which I'm not, I believe in school choice. You should be able to go where you want to
Yeah,
go.
I do too.
But to put a kid on a bus for a half an hour one way and then a half an hour back, that cuts into their after school activities. That cuts into their
I was one of those bus kids. I would go from Buena Vista on the southwest side there to School 16 over on North Broadway. And Ron, I tell you, it was a good experience for me. It was great for me to get out and meet other people that I didn't see in my neighborhood. And as that documentary also states, as one person in there, we stayed in our neighborhood. They said we didn't venture outside of that neighborhood. So even now, I'm still learning of some places here in Yonkers that I didn't know existed because we never left that area there, right? It was like almost like a wall, right? And you just don't go. I had one guy one time tell me and my group of friends, we were riding bikes up north to go back to the hellhole we were from, right? This is what the older man said to me. So, it's I believe in busing and stuff to meet new people. I met Italians. I started playing street hockey. I got to spend the night over at friends' house who had homes, which I wasn't used to. Spending a night over in a house. That changed things for me. And then that happened more throughout my life, which
I was
on a different path.
I actually was a little isolated. I went to Elizabeth Seton Academy for grammar school. We lived in Valentine Gardens, so it was right there. My parents sacrificed a lot so I can go to private school or Catholic school. But I would go to the Y. So I lived on Valentine Lane, and I would walk from down to 17 Riverdale. Sometimes I take the bus. Sometimes I would walk. On the way back, I'd take the bus. That's when they were constructing the municipal housing that was a little bit north of the Y. We'd have to walk to that bus stop. So yeah, I'd walk sometimes down through Buena Vista. Different. Well, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was a little bit of a different time. It was. I guess that was like mid 70s. 74, 75.
I wasn't around then. I definitely wasn't around then, but I do remember the late 80s and early 90s, and it was rough. It's not as, I don't see it as bad now. Back then, it was just really, really run down, right? You had crack vials on the floor. You would see syringes. You would visibly see all the crack addicts, right?
I was living at 259th and Broadway at the time, across from Van Cortlandt Park.
Oh, yeah.
So I would walk my dogs in the park, and I would see the crack vials and the syringes by the benches. And that was, I was just down from the Yonkers line. It was, I don't know, maybe a quarter mile from Carroll Avenue.
Yes. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. So yeah, times are definitely different now. Ron, I appreciate you joining me tonight. Is there anything you want to mention before I let you go?
That's it. We've got a mayor's race on. We've got a 5th district council race. We've got a Ron Chute is running against Mike Breen for the Republican nomination. We've got, let's see, anything else? You've got obviously Shanae and
Chris Johnson.
Chris Johnson is a primary. The mayor's got a primary with Carzone Pineda. We never really got into that.
Yeah, I want to ask you that really quick. Margaret Coleman. I was sent a video. I guess she had some volunteers. I don't know, maybe they paid people. They want Ashburton with a sign. I'm not sure if you saw that video. She's been relatively quiet. I think that's like the first sign of Margaret Coleman's campaign I've seen. I'm hearing whispers now she's there to, kind of hurt Corazon's chances of winning. What do you think about that?
I don't know. Carzone had some names behind her. She had some money behind her. How she lost the Working Families Party line, I don't understand that. I really don't. I've seen Margaret at events. I like Margaret. I don't know her that well, but I've seen her before she was running. I've met her, and while she's running, I don't think a lot of people do this because they like the abuse, but I just haven't seen her campaign gaining traction.
Right.
Um,
Was she challenged? Did anyone challenge her? I don't hear anything
I,
about it.
I kind of heard her petitions were challenged, but so I think it took a little bit for her to get back on. Um, I know I was there when Chris Johnson was challenged. His petitions were challenged along with Hector
Right.
and was Carzone. I think Carzone was
Yeah.
challenged too with that. I was up there challenging Mike Breen's petition. So
Is that when Zahi Jeris was up there?
yeah, Zay was up there. I bumped into him while I was challenging petitions. So.
So, Zahi, I went up to the Board of Elections. I spoke to Tommy Meyer Jr., who presented himself, according to individuals that told me this, as the deputy commissioner of the Board of Elections. Although when I spoke to him, he said he never was the deputy commissioner, but he was the poll inspector coordinator or inspection coordinator,
Yeah,
and then now he's a technical guy.
I
IT.
hear he's in charge of voter integrity, and it was an efficiency move. They wanted to provide a little efficiency, so the machines will be coming preloaded with Spano votes. No,
There you go.
kidding.
Well, what do you think about that, though? And I went up there because I wanted to know, Zahi Jeris, why would he be up there? He pled guilty in 1998 to election fraud.
Yeah, I know. I know that, so I wasn't back in the Republican Party, but some of the folks that I've dealt with in the Republican Party, they remember Zay's hijinks all too much and are not happy. It's a black mark on the party, Zay being the chairman back then. But you got to remember who made him chair.
Right. Well, and back in 98, when he pled guilty to election fraud, he was the commissioner of deeds, the Westchester County Commissioner of Deeds. Leonard Spano allowed him to keep the job, and he also got a 40% raise, according to an article that I read, Associated Press article. And then there was a gentleman with the last name Fagan, Fagan.
Yeah, Ed Fagan. I know of Ed Fagan. I'd never met Ed Fagan.
Was he one of the council members on the DSEC during the DSEC? There was a Fagan on there.
So I know a little bit about my ex-wife was a reporter at the time. Well, she was in college, finishing up college, and she was writing a article. I had just gotten out of the Navy around that time, and she was writing an article for I think Black Westchester, or she was a stringer for a magazine. And so she had interviewed me, and that's the first I heard about it. And, she identified me as a blonde-haired, blue-eyed person to identify my race for the article, but without identifying my race. So, yeah, it was I know it was a big deal. I hadn't been in New York for a little bit up to that point. And so I was just coming back in New York with the DSEC case. So I didn't know all of those folks involved. I did watch Show Me a Hero last February for the first time. It was interesting to watch. And of course I did it for my MPA, but I didn't know the players at the time. You should get Bob Stoff on your show, because he knows all the ins and outs. Yeah,
I did. There was the group, the Save the Yonkers Federation, which was incorporated to nonprofit, incorporated on March 4th, 1988, right? And so March 4th is actually my wife and I's anniversary. 10 years later, in 1998, on March 4th, a year to the day later, my wife and I started dating officially. But that's also the same year that Zahi Jeris pled guilty to election fraud. So I just didn't understand how they would allow this guy in there.
This whole nexus around March 4th, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. March 4th. Then there's 98 when my wife and I met, started dating. So I think God is really working here. I like to look at these different signs, and the Save the Federation, or the Save Yonkers Federation, is still active. They said, well, maybe they just never dissolved it, but you still have to, pay, and you have to file the taxes.
I did speak with Bob. You had your broadcast on one day regarding, that going from to the strong mayor
right
model, and I did ask him about it. What was his thoughts on it? And he said the problem with the way Yonkers was operating before, if they didn't like the city manager, whoever was the majority could just axe the city manager. And so if the city manager had to make real decisions on money, which he felt was more fair, it was less political than the current system. I mean, than the former system. So they would get axed if they didn't. I don't mean axed with where you're pronouncing ask incorrectly.
Right.
I mean they would lose their job if they didn't comply with the majority on the council because they were just a hired employee. I don't know if they had a contract. Again, I
Right.
wasn't right. All I knew then is when Martinelli was always the mayor when I was a kid. John
Was he-
King
is-
was always the senator, and Martinelli was always the mayor.
Is was Bob part of that Save Yonkers Federation? Or
Yeah,
no?
Bob was an appointed council member. He took I forgot whose spot he took. He took somebody's spot.
That was the group that was opposing the DSEG. They were the ones that caused.
No,
the
he
city.
wasn't opposing. No, he wasn't opposing the DSEG. I'm sorry. I think I mixed
Yeah,
up.
no, I'm talking about the Save Yonkers Federation, which was formed in 1988 to oppose the desegregation,
Yeah, no, he wasn't
the
part of
housing ordinance.
Yeah, Bob. Yeah, no,
I
don't know.
I noticed that they're still active. I didn't, someone said, well, maybe they just didn't dissolve it, but you have to, file taxes. Even if you don't do anything, you still have to file that
Yeah, you
stuff,
still have
pay
to
for it.
file. You can look
So-
up their 990. You can look up 990 status and see if they filed or whatever.
Yeah, I'm just
Or you
wondering
can-
why
or
they
you
still
can
are
file
still
a
active.
FOIL. You can file a FOIL and see if they.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, Ron, thank you very much. The elections definitely are going to be something that I would love for you to come back on and talk throughout, as we get closer to primaries and stuff like that.
This will be a big primary. I think you're not talking Ivy Reeves. Nothing against Ivy, but you're not talking about Ivy Reeves and Karen Beltran here.
Yes, that's 2019 primaries you're
Yeah, so
referring to. Yeah.
I think you'll see a lot more campaigning from both ladies who are in the primary. Although aside from the article, Corzone's also been quiet. It is budget season, so it ties up the incumbent council members. They actually have to do their job for a change.
Do they actually do their job during budget
Well,
season?
somebody tells them what to do. I know
They have to listen.
I know Steve DeVert sends Mike in there and tells him what he's got to vote for. So it makes it easy for him.
Ron, I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on. Again, I hope to have you on some more. I always enjoy talking, and I think the people enjoyed this one. A lot of people on tonight. So thank you very much, Ron. I was going to say John. Ron, take care. Ron Matten, former candidate for Yonkers City Council President. And he did okay against Lakeisha Connors Bellamy, considering that she had the machine. A lot of you guys are writing stuff here. I'm sorry. Zay, Johnny, what'd you do with that $5,000? Jay Cooper wants to know. Jay Cooper, he's a Facebook stalker. Exactly. They had no right making that decision on Rubo, and you're referring to the ethics board there. The charter said within 30 days. Did your son work for the city or no? Council did not have the authority. We read that already. Who's got here? What about the fact that Steve Levy's wife? Yeah, Steve Levy's the deputy mayor. His wife works for the city. Oh, corrupt. What's going on, Romario? How you doing, brother? The Civil Service Commission with Mr. Pacheco is also in their pocket. They skip true candidates with bogus background investigations. Is that what Liam McLaughlin is doing, right? The IG, they do the background investigations, right? But they don't investigate the real criminals. That's what Liam should be doing, the real criminals. But of course not when his entire family works for the city and he hangs out with them. They did not even perform my background investigation. Yeah, it's like when CPS, when they did that bogus thing, individuals with the city, they didn't even do an actual investigation. They just closed it because they themselves knew that this was all nonsense. And I almost called them up and said, hey, you can't close it. You didn't do a real investigation. I want you to do a real investigation now, right? Do your job now since you want to, right? But they just closed it. It's all bullish in City Yonkers. They push candidates out to get their unqualified candidates to the top of the list, right? Well, Jose Alvarado actually was this Yonkers City clerk before Vinny Spano. And so they wanted to get Vinny Spano in there. So they gave Alvarado a job with the mayor as an assistant, making $70,000 or $77,000 a year. I think it was $70,000 a year as an assistant to the mayor, Jose Alvarado, right? And then they eventually would put in Vinny Spano, who now makes $183,000 and doesn't really do the job. Mike Ramadelli is the real city clerk. He's the one that actually does more of the work. But yeah, so they got Jose Alvarado there, and then eventually they would move him to Parks Department because he didn't have a real job, right? It was just a BS. Get him out the way so we can get Vinny in there, but you got to give him something good. Give him a little $70,000 salary, and he doesn't have to really do anything. You don't got to do anything, Jose. Just get out the way so we could put Vinny in there. And so this is what led him to be drinking, in my opinion, right? If he had nothing to do, he's got a BS job. They just wanted him out the way so Vinny could become the next city clerk. What was he going to do all day? Of course, he was going to go over there to the Park Hill Country Club and, and drink and come in wasted. So, but they couldn't have him like that at City Hall, at least. So they moved him over to Parks. They figured no one really goes over there. Go get wasted there and hang out for the however many hours you work. All right, that's what goes on here. The reality is the mayor says his relatives are in civil service jobs. The mayor strategically put Levy's wife on the Civil Service Commission. So it questions the validity of the test. Exactly. This is what some people say, oh, well, they took the test. As if they can't cheat that. As if that's impossible, right? As if it makes it foolproof that's it, they can't cheat it. Also, go look at the civil service hires where they skipped around and over people to get who they want. Also, look how the mayor manipulated the promotion test for his cousins in the fire department. Right. Well, initially they wanted him to go into the YPD, but his record was too dirty. So they moved him over to the Yonkers Fire Department. But in order to get him there, they had to knock out a person that was going to make it. But we needed the mayor's people in there, so they knocked this person out. So it's messed up. I actually spoke to the individual's family or I don't know if family, wife, somebody's sister maybe, that got knocked off in order to allow Anthony Carragine onto the Yonkers Fire Department. So that's what they do. All right. So whoever, because there's some folks out there that are just, I don't know if you guys are delusional. Maybe you're making money with this whole corruption. I don't know what it is, but you will support it to no end. And almost like in a way where you're not looking smart. You're making yourself look a little not so smart. I don't want to say dumb, not smart, because in order for you to state your claim or your point or whatever, you have to be not smart. You have to be like, well, I didn't even think about that. Oh, duh, right? Like, oh, why Liam and the mayor, because they could hang out. They could be friends. Well, they shouldn't be, because if they're good friends and the mayor's doing something that should be investigated, you think Liam is going to actually investigate it? My friend who gave me this $193,000 a year job, who gave my wife a job, who gave my two brothers a job, who's my niece and his nephew have a baby together. So you think he's going to investigate Mike Spano? No way. So therefore, that takes away from the integrity of that office to that person who said that. Whether they're doing something or not, it doesn't even matter. It's the fact that we can't really give it the full faith of that, that they're going to do what they need to do in that office. That's the problem. So we don't want to have to question. We don't want to have any doubt. So just don't do it, right? That's the problem. So to the person, I hope that you now understand, or you can remain ignorant if you want. That's your choice. It's a freedom, right, that we have in this country. We can be intelligent or we can be ignorant. You decide ultimately. Everybody has the ability to be intelligent and ignorant. 75% of YPS schools have no or inadequate heating or AC. Let's not touch on the asbestos or other cancer-causing agents that they do contain. Right. So a lot of schools, and as I was talking to Ron in terms of the reports for the Joint Schools Construction Board, it's about $500 million. A little, he said 600. I saw 500. Maybe it changed. He would know better, but that's a lot of money, right? And so far, they've only managed to build one school on McLean, which is taking a while. Look how fast Lion Gates is building studios, right? And so that is only 600 students. Well, there's a need for a total of 4,000 seats. They're over by 4,000, and that's probably growing. So this school is only going to bring in 600 more, 600 students. So yeah, it's going to do what? 3,400 students. You still have that, we're overcrowded by 3,400 students, right? So there's a total need for 3 schools plus a bunch of renovations for all the schools that are here that are part of the Yonkers Public Schools. Many of them need stuff like heat. The HVAC system is not working. So kids are wearing their coats in the wintertime and they're melting in their seats during the summertime. That impacts their ability to focus, to do their work, to stay still, right? So, even heat, when it's hot, that's why you see a lot of crime in the summertime, agitates people and stuff. So, kids are agitated in there and sweaty. You think they care? No, they don't care, but they'll spend $13 million to buy contaminated land over there on Fernbrook in order to put a riverfront park. But if I were you, I'd stay away. The reason why a developer didn't buy that and put a big building there like they would normally want to do is because the ground is contaminated. It's no bueno. A lot of that area in the Ludlow Park is contaminated. I mean, you had the oil refinery. I mean, the sugar refinery. You had an oil refinery, I think, oil company there also. That's no longer there. You also had the water treatment plant, right? That's treating all that sewage, and that's coming in from Westchester to other places in Westchester, Yonkers. So there's a lot of nastiness. You had, you had the Indian Point up the river, right? So there's a lot of contamination in that area. I heard that also impacted the development that Ginsburg will be doing there. They think they want to put 2 buildings, but now they're only going to put 1 building because of the problems they're having with the soil where they wanted to build the second one. So be careful. We should find out for sure whether or not that park is safe or not. If it's healthy to go there, right? You don't want to bring your kids down a swing and then all of a sudden you guys got cancer. That's not cool. Why are his family members taking home $180,000 or more per year? Liam and his wife take home $300,000. For what? They're robbing the city. So when you can't get heat in the schools or AC in the schools, or there's not enough laptops, tablets, or any other supplies, as Jose Diaz, candidate for District 17 county legislator who works for the schools, said they don't have the tools. They lack so much. The mayor would like to have you believe that our school district is doing so well. 90% graduation rate. Yeah, they're pushing kids along. Where are these kids ending up? Let's follow up 10 years later and let's see what actually became of their lives as they get pushed through the system so they don't make the mayor look bad. Pass them. We don't care, right? They're a bunch of Hispanics and blacks mostly anyway, and whites who can't afford to send them to where we send our kids. Those private schools like Stepanak, right? So who cares? Who cares? Give the money to the friends and family, then put it in their pocket. If you look at the work done on the renovation of Lincoln High School, you would understand. The work is in the bathrooms and auditorium is ridiculous. The auditorium has fake handicap accessible spots. The bathrooms have screws sticking out of them. If the walls and stands out of it, the walls and stands in the field are a joke. The work and contact we are awarded to Spano, the work and contracts are awarded to Spano affiliates, and they do shoddy work. They cut corners. And I'm telling you, God is working here because I'm meeting people, even in my capacity as a business owner in the business that I do. People are calling me to do work on their property or represent them in insurance claims. And here in Yonkers, and I'm learning some shit. Like, what the hell exploded over there on Palisade Avenue? What was Con Ed doing over there that caused an explosion? They're investigating it thoroughly, but they're keeping it quiet. What are they doing? Con Edison is disrupting a lot of stuff there, and that destroyed the business of my client. And so now he's got to go through hell in order to get his money to possibly open a business up somewhere else. But in the meantime, he's like going crazy. He's stressed out. He just had the business open for maybe 2 years. And I know what that's like. Spending all that money. You're not making your money back right away. And now your business is gone, blown up by a gas line because Con Ed was doing something directly in front of that building for about a month before that happened. And they're keeping it hush-hush. What's going on? And I said, we're going to see a lot of fires here in Yonkers, right? Well, there was another fire today at the Senegal, something on Warburton, that building. There was a fire there today. Fire on Spruce, fire on Bruce. What happened to those buildings up at the top of Maple? What happened there? Why did they burn down? Who owned them? Why did they want those buildings, or why do they want those buildings removed there? What's at the very top of Maple, at the corner next to those buildings that caught fire? There were about 4 of them that caught fire. Who owns them? Why did they burn? And why do they want to knock them down? This is going to be happening a lot here in the city of Yonkers. You ever heard of the Bronx is burning? Well, Yonkers is burning. I've been in the fire business for 10 years. I've never had this much work in Yonkers. Yonkers rarely burned. I mean, Mount Vernon burned like 100 times damn near more than Yonkers, and it's only 4 square miles. The Bronx, that's where I did most of my work. But recently I've been in Yonkers. Who's burning down the buildings and why? Think about that, folks. It's very real. They did that in the Bronx. And yes, these individuals who get contracts are connected to the administration. They pay to play, like a specific architect who does a crappy job. I'm just saying, I seen your work, homeboy. How the hell did you get the permits and approvals for that? How did that pass inspection? I don't know. So there's this tag team duel. I don't want to say the name, but I'm going to say the name. You got to say the name, Fred, right? Yeah, I got to say the name because you got to know what I'm talking about. What is it, Joseph Fernandez? I think you do work with Acosta. I mean, you guys did an addition. I don't get it. You guys did this deck and stairs. I don't get that. I've worked with architects for 10 years. We've done additions. We've built homes from the ground up, the foundation and everything up. The work that was done there is crappy. And now the individual has leaks in their home because they didn't seal the addition properly. They didn't even do that addition correctly. It's crappy work. And they get permits, they get approvals, and they get the permits to close out. Inspectors okay everything, and they move on. And you see the blue sign everywhere. Joseph Fernandez, architect. I'm just saying, dude, that's the good thing about Freddie Vasquez. I understand this stuff. I understand the building department. Why do you think that they have yet to put a digital system in? New York City is much bigger than Yonkers, obviously. The Bronx alone has over 1 million people. Yet and still, the city has an online access to their building department called DOB Now. Makes it very easy to file for permits, to check on the status, to print out things. Yet and still, Yonkers has no digital system for anything in the building department. You got to go in there and look how they keep these files. And I'm not blaming the staff, the ladies in there. I appreciate you. It's the management. You know, they keep saying, we need a manager. We need a manager. Well, they've hired how many managers now? I mean, to the point where they even reduced the requirement of the building department commissioner in order to hire Sam Borelli because he's such a great manager. But is he? This is a guy who gave his son or himself a contract to do work while he was the deputy commissioner of DPW. Currently, the deputy commissioner, I believe, is now Len Spano. How do you get to that position? Right? So Sam Borelli is not managing anything because the building department is still in the same condition that it's been. You know what they've done? They renovated the inside. They added another office here, there, and third, whatever. But it's still the same. The files are all screwed up. A lot of stuff is missing, and they're not up to date. And that should all be digitized. But they don't want to do that right now. They're going to do it after everything is done because right now they still want to cheat the system. They want to take the properties that nobody knows about when the people die and they have no next of kin. They want to scam on all the real estate. So until they're finished scamming on all the real estate here, they're not going to make it easy. They're not going to make it, a system that's, a seamless, system that's efficient, that's clear, that has the information you're looking for. They don't want that. That'll expose them for the lies that, for the stealing that they're doing here, right? So Yonkers is intelligence unit that does the background for all Yonkers employees is where they put all the corruption people. Detective Yazzer Spano's personal bodyguards is on the unit. Yeah, that's right. He does nothing except collect a check. A lot of them do. Ron is pretty funny. He's better to do his job. His salary is a lot higher for what he does. And I'm not sure you're referring to a minute or a lifetime, still a disgusting, corrupt individual, too close to Spano as a bodyguard and still did his bidding in the intelligence unit for a large salary and easy job deal. And speaking of the bodyguards for the mayor and the drivers for the mayor, I shared the picture with Liam McLaughlin, the mayor, Vinny Spano, his wife, John Rubo. John Rubo was like the tag along, right? His wife was there. And Cal Nasser was there. Cal Nasser, Lieutenant Cal Nasser, now retired from the Yonkers Police Department. He was the mayor's driver for the 5 years, the last 5 years that he was on the force. The man made over $1.3 million in 5 years driving the mayor around. Over $1.3 million driving the mayor around. That's crazy. And he was in that picture chilling. They're at a casino. They're having drinks. And I hear other things that they like to indulge in, including the Yonkers Inspector General from multiple sources. The Yonkers Inspector General's brother almost killed somebody. He tried to kill somebody with his car. He did. And now he's got a job with DPW. And there's some other legal issues there with some of the McLaughlins who work for the city. They don't care if you got a felony. You will get hired. There are people that have been hired by DPW, have caught a felony while working for DPW, have gone to jail, have did their time, come back out as a felon, and get rehired by DPW. And I'm jealous. That's why I'm saying this, because I'm jealous, right? It's according to some individuals. I'm jealous that I wasn't invited to the Spano event or Zupa event the other night. I was there. I've been there, and I've done that. I don't want to be there. I don't need to be in these stupid look at me events, giving people money for nothing. I done gave them money, okay? And I was there. I could have stayed there if that's who I was. If I was the type of person that they are, I would still be hanging out with them, trying to get my little minds and screwing everybody else over. Maybe sniffy, sniffy, drinky, drinky. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not with all that. That's not what I like to do, Phyllis. But I was there. I was invited. I didn't see you. Were you invited? Because as much as you kissed their ass, you should be at all these events. And I want to clear the record. When I say you should have just let me do my daycare center, I'm not saying that I was trying to shake anybody down. What I'm saying is that had they not bothered me, I wouldn't be bothering them. That's my point. But never did I once ask for special treatment. Never once. So to the individual that kind of said that to me, I was a little disappointed because I have supported you and I've shouted you out and I've told people to go check you out. And so for you to insinuate that bothered me. And for you to insinuate that what we do here in Basement Politics is not going to work or is not doing anything is disrespectful to the people who watch and who have been more vocal because of Basement Politics. People have developed the confidence to call it like they see it when they were once scared. The movement has gotten bigger. And if it wasn't effective, they wouldn't waste their time creating fake pages to attack me just about every day. I've put myself out, my neck on the line here, and my family has been attacked, my business has been attacked, and it continues to be attacked. I just ignore it, most of it. I don't care. I mean, they're a bunch of lies. They have not proved anything other than that they're a bunch of idiots. But that's okay. I accept that because I put myself out there. I don't like when they talk about my kids or my wife, but it is what it is. They've tried to hurt my business by telling parents that I'm going to do something to their kids or whatever because I have a daycare center. This is how disgusting and low these people are. Yet and still, you got some individuals that say Freddie is wrong for what he says about them. Are you kidding me? Phyllis, I don't want to be there. They are evil people. They call CPS on people. They will attack and assault people. They will retaliate and get people fired, take away their pension, leave them penniless. They don't care. They attack their kids, and then they want to cry when I say something. Oh, you get my kids and my wife. And I'm not talking about one person specifically. I'm saying this is, because I just mentioned this to somebody today, not you. Right? They are pieces of shit. They're snakes in the grass. They pretend to be your friend, but when they get the chance to talk badly about you, they will. It's come back to me many times. And some of you think they're so nice. Oh, it's so nice. But I like this person. That's a fucking snake. They pretend to be nice. That's their game. You know, it's like when Steve Simpson once said to me, and I got to call you. I know, Steve. I just don't want to, you know, I got a lot going on, so I have to prioritize. I mean, I know what you're going to call me about, but I get it. You're not going to say, yes, I said that. You're going to deny it. That's why I don't really bother, because I know what you're going to say. So why go through the motions, right? Why go through the motions? You know, and so I didn't appreciate that. Steve, I thought we were cool. I thought we were friends. I thought we were like, you know, hanging out. But I'm realizing that they send people to befriend you, to keep, you know, tabs on you, to manipulate you, to get you to think all kinds of crazy stuff. Steve, I thought we were taking over together. That's what you said. You said it was about time somebody new come in and take over. And I said, who? And you looked at me and said, maybe you. Right there, Steve, I said, red flag. That was a red flag, Steve. I ain't gonna lie, it was a red flag. What do you mean? Was that a test? Were you seeing what I was trying to do? What were my intentions here? I don't give a fuck about your politics. I don't want your politics. I don't want your little, you know, way to survive. I don't need it. I just secured a contract today and I'm Gucci Meng, right? And the reason why I was so excited is because I beat a competitor of mine. That's why. I'm very competitive. It wasn't so much about the money. It's just that I won. Because I like to win. I'm very competitive. And so that's why I'm still here. Because I'm going to see this through. To that person who said Trump people were shouting, and what has that gotten? Well, Trump, they're still talking about Trump. Most people prefer Trump over Biden. But the problem is the corruption. Something that you seem to not get all the way. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because you're naive, you don't want to see it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But some things we're just not going to be able to say, hey, look, here's the video. It's right here. Some things you have to use your brain. Take that 2, take the other 2, put a plus sign in the middle, and you get 4. If you can't do that, I don't know what to say. Some of it is so obvious. And I get it. You need documentation, but I don't care so much about seeing people go to jail. Unlike Mike Spano, who sent Lorraine to jail, made her a felon. Right, Lorraine? I guess saw water under the bridge now, right? Did your felony get wiped under the bridge too? Or is it still hanging on your back as you go and get petitions for the mayor? Unbelievable. So I don't want your politics. Everybody that's deep in it like that, two-faced, snakes, liars, thieves, cheats. Some are accomplished, many are not. They think they are because they were given a job. Some are smart, most are not. And they think that I'm jealous of that. I don't think so. Contract that I scored today will pay me double what some of these individuals who work for the city get, who have been appointed by the mayor and are a part of the nepotism system. So I don't need your job. Look at me. I don't need your job. I never needed your job. And I don't need the daycare center. I would never compromise myself for the daycare center because I don't need to do it. I'm doing it because I enjoy it. My wife always had a dream of starting her own little school. And I love my wife. And my goal and my priority is not to be in politics. It's not to get anything from the mayor, from anyone in City Hall, get a contract, get a job, get whatever you guys get. My goal is to make my wife happy, make her dreams come true, as well as that of my kids. And that's my dream. That's all I care about. And so when the day you came to fuck with that was the day you woke up a beast. And it has nothing to do with what they didn't give me or what they gave me. I didn't want anything but to be left the fuck alone. Don't give me a hard time. But they did. So I hope there's some clarity there. You know what I didn't want? I'm going to give you a little more clarity. When I met with them at the building department and they screwed me over by not giving me the right information, I'm meeting with you to go over this, to make sure we got the right information, exactly what it is that's needed. And you tell me when I revise the plans, which I had to pay the architect to do, again, and I submit them to the planning examiner who said, hey, give me the paper, the plans once you revise them so I can make sure they're good. After he just told me everything I needed, he wanted to make sure that I included exactly what he had wanted. I literally had it to him back in a day. You know how long he took to get back to me? Yet he told me it's time of the essence. Hurry up and get me the revision so I can look at them real quick before you submit them. He held them up for 3 weeks, that motherfucker. And then when he gives them back to me, he's got all this shit marked up that I needed to now add to the architect plans, which was going to cost me more money, but more importantly, more time. They were purposely delaying me to screw me over, to make me waste money, hoping that this spick would go away because he didn't have what it took to go the distance. But they were wrong. I'm not Lorraine Lopez. I'm a different spick. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Folks, I'm here for the long haul, and I know some people are a bit pessimistic. I'm not. I'm optimistic. Optimus Prime. Let's fucking transform this city into the place we want to see, folks. I'm tired of the corruption, and I'm tired of these people. And I know many of you are. So come out and vote. Democrats, primaries in June. Vote for Corazon Pineda Isaac. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Vote for Pineda Isaac. That's right.
Ready.
Mean that. Is your vote in the primary. You need to vote for Corazon. That's the choice.
Ready. Win.
You want change, that's the choice.
Fatality.
You're watching
And I
Basement
say that
Politics
because-
with my dad, Freddie Vasquez.
Thank you, sweetie. She has the support of this machine that can really get this done, but they need the people. I'm not sure about Margaret Coleman. She doesn't have the machine. And then I was actually thinking that Corazon was the one that was in there to kind of screw it all up, but now I think it's Margaret. Margaret, I think it's you. I don't know. Maybe you don't mean. I don't know. I don't know. No one talks to me. You guys go on all these other places, but you don't call me. Anyone that doesn't come on my podcast but goes on other places, I don't necessarily trust you. I'm just saying. I don't know if Margaret Coleman did, and I'm just saying there's been some other people that have asked to come on that I thought were going to be good for the community. They were genuine. They were real, but they don't come on my show. If you don't come on my show, then something's up. Bottom line. Bottom line. You've seen the people that have come on my show. Did anything go bad? No. So if you don't come on my show, someone's telling you not to, so you won't support me, so people won't see you on my show because they don't want more audience, more, so something's up with you. And I think you're corrupt. That's just my opinion. Otherwise, come on my show. I'm Freddie Vasquez. Peace out. I'll see you. Thank you, folks. Have a beautiful night. Happy Monday. Tomorrow's Monday. I'm excited, though. It's Monday. I'm very excited. Got a lot going on. Folks, Be blessed. Be well.
You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez.
Freddie wins. Fatality.
Thank you for watching Basement Politics with my husband, Freddie Vasquez.
I think it's very interesting that everybody's all getting worked up now and all about this low HUD article, Journal News, and Fox 5, and whoever else spoke about what I have been speaking about on my podcast. And in fact, I've given more details. What's the difference? What's the difference? What's the difference? We knew about this. Let's keep pushing, folks. We got to continue to be consistent.
You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez.
Freddie wins. Fatality.
No! Make sure you vote for Jose Diaz out in District 17. Vote for Christopher Johnson, District 16. Shanae Williams is not in the mood. She's not in the mood to be a politician. She's not.
You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez.
I want to end this quick because I'm greedy and I want somebody to want a chicken. So thank you.
In another one, Mr. Rumo lied to me. And I don't vote for the person that lied to me. Thank you very much.
I know you have a lot of women that work in your office. And I was also told that you favor some over others. I'm hoping that this is not true, Sandy.
Listen, I know you were 10, but you have a problem with the detectives you call Detective Sergeant. I know who the fuck you think you are. Hey, listen, I know you were 10, but you have a problem with the detectives you call Detective Sergeant. I know who the fuck you think you are. I know who the fuck you think you are.
But I'm a councilwoman, so the capacity that I know you in, they may know you in a different capacity. But we're going to leave it where it is. Let's vote on this. Let's get it popping.
Freddie wins. Fatality.
Los que hablan español, los que hablan español, are we? Let's make it happen, guys. Make me happy today. That's a lot of stars. Are we? Let's make it happen, guys. Make me happy today. That's a lot of stars. Hopefully,
You and I would be the experts. If it were on hot dogs, yes.
Good evening, Carolyn. Good evening, Carolyn.
You and I would be the experts. If it were on hot dogs.
Begging. You're one of them.
Good evening, Carolyn.
Begging. You're one of them. Begging.
Good evening, Carolyn. This is Stephen Tavert. Sorry that I'm calling you so late, but I just got your number a little bit ago. I actually intended to call you prior to this yesterday, in fact, but unfortunately that didn't happen. So I apologize for calling you later than I wanted to. And in any event, I was calling to apologize.
Freddie wins. Fatality.
Anyway, how you doing, Freddie? I watch your show. I think it's very interesting. My brother and he lives in Yonkers. I live up in the Greenberg area, and he got me hooked on watching your podcast, man. Doing a good job.
Freddie wins. Fatality.
It's a major accounting error, $55 million. Number crunchers in the Yonkers school system counted on state aid that wasn't on the way for the past 2 years. Now the district is in crisis. The city's inspector general calls the finance department inexperienced, understaffed, and in complete disarray.
Freddie wins. Fatality. You and I would be the expert.
And let me tell you, there's a lot of people that spoke today.
You and I would be the expert.
And let me tell you, there's a lot of people that spoke today that was against me, and I still help you to this day. There are churches that are sitting in here that come to me, and I provide for your parishioners. Okay? And they come to me.
You don't do nothing. I should have stayed.
I was raised in housing. I was raised in housing. I was raised in housing. Let's get it popping.
Freddie wins. Fatality.
No!
the hopes that the people will follow them benefit him. Because he doesn't cover. He only talks trash. Benefit him. Because he doesn't cover. He only talks trash. The hopes that the people will follow them. Are we? Let's make it happen, guys. Make me happy today. We are the real McCoy. We are the original. We are the leaders. They follow us. Yonkers voice lets its work speak for itself. We don't
win. Fatality.
No!
You and I would be the expert.
Are we? Because they que hablan español, the hopes, so that
Come on, give it to us straight.
not long ago, but I am the bad guy. Not long ago, but I am the bad guy.
I'm hoping that this is not true, Sammy. I know you have a lot of women that work in your office.
Letting Helen off easy.
Are we doing interviews right now?
Yes, I sent that text message yesterday if you had any questions for the candidates.
Yes, but I thought it was going to be like after we went through the agenda, we would then do interviews. But I'm okay. I don't have any questions. I know.
Okay.
I think she's great. I think she'll be a great first deputy counsel or counsel.
Okay.
All right.
I guess
Item number 2.
Yeah, she's
Is
off the
ready to
hot seat.
proceed.
We're going to put this item onto the agenda.
All right. Okay, item number 2 is a
Letting
resolution.
Helen off easy.
Are we doing interviews right now?
Yes, I sent that text message yesterday if you had any questions for the candidates.
Yes, but I thought it was going to be like after we went through the agenda, we would then do interviews. But I'm okay. I don't have any questions. I know.
Okay.
I think she's great. I think she'll be a great first deputy counsel or counsel.
Okay.
All right.
I guess
Item number 2.
Yeah, she's
is
off the
ready to
hot seat.
proceed.
We're going to put this item onto the agenda.
All right. Okay, item number 2 is a resolution.
Letting Helen off easy.
Are we doing interviews?
Game over.